Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Becoming Michelle Obama. Hashtag We Are Becoming a Podcast. That's myself, Yolanda Lattimore, and then, of course, Angela Stalker. You're going to hear her voice in just a second. This is we're 2 weeks out, no, 1 week out until Michelle Obama arrives in Atlanta, and we decided to do this podcast based on the fact that Atlanta is on the tour stop, and I know she has visited a number of cities, and you guys have the same anxiousness as we have. When she comes to Atlanta, she will be in a larger venue, actually, our basketball arena. So we, knowing that it's going to be something on that scale, Angela and I wanted to do something just to kind of bring it home and really go into the book and just talk about it. And man, we have really unearthed some things and discover some things. And if there's a formula for first ladies, I think that there there is one out there. Um, what came through for us and what we're going to talk about today, if you listen to any of those before, or if you go back and binge like you binging on Game of Thrones, listen for the context, as I think this is what we grabbed on, where our first lady talked about otherness, sameness, and togetherness. And while that wasn't their campaign strategy, it was something that came through, and I think really should be their legacy. Angela, on you.
Yes, and it absolutely. When we just look at what they what has been accomplished, right? What was accomplished in those 8 years? What continues to be accomplished? And this is back to the thing that everybody said once we transitioned to a new president is you don't realize how good you have it till it's gone, right? And it's like, wait a minute, and so you think about how the
Hmm.
entire Obama family elevated the presidency
Hmm.
and created a legacy. And I feel like, just and we've talked about this many times now, is this was the first candidacy. So going back to, when they start really campaigning in earnest, 2006, right, for the 2008 campaign, that was using social media, right? They started using
Hmm.
social media platforms. They really had to navigate 24-hour news cycles in a way like we'd never seen before. But they in the era of, I mean, they're talking about their Blackberries, right? And the big thing was Obama had to give up his Blackberry, and Michelle talks about her Blackberry. But, looking at Michelle Obama, I feel like she created a legacy of what, and again, each first lady gets to do what she wants to do, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
of how a modern professional working woman who has an equally, she's ambitious, had an equally ambitious spouse. So how, we're just going to call her a spouse, how two ambitious spouses can work together. And that in her time in the White House, like I say, we're seeing all this behind the scenes, that she harnessed she was very forward thinking and harnessed these things that we have, now that just are common, right? Of how to stay connected, how to stay forward focused, how to navigate all this, and really sort of created a blueprint that
Hmm.
wasn't there. She did not have Laura Bush, Hillary Clinton. None of them
I think it had
had to deal with that.
an element of being public. It's like you had the news
Mm-hmm.
cycle. The other ladies had to deal with the coming of age of this 24-hour news cycle. But still there was a matter of which they could control. As even
Mm-hmm.
from the daily, White House press briefings, the White House could still control the narrative on
Mm.
that. This was the first time a first lady had to be public 24/7.
Yes.
And understand, not in when I say public, I mean receiving feedback. Because you could come out and, okay, this is the first lady's agenda of the day, these are the stops, these are the conversations, these are the points that she's going to hit, and all that, and they could control that narrative. But this was the first governing body that had to wake up and truly hear the people have spoken, and this is what the people are saying, and having access to everything. we
Yeah.
all we all had a way in, a reach. I, sitting here in my kitchen, had to reach into the White House each and every day in my mind, and
Mm-hmm.
in some form reality, because there was response to things that I said and did here because the president social media accounts followed me, and I got a tweet from a DM from the White House. Not only that, during the campaign, I remember getting, and I know, some of these things today, it doesn't necessarily matter because, the bots are out there. You say something, you tweet this, that, and the other. They've got these things that respond to you. But then in that time, knowing that, oh, there's a person that saw your comment and responded to you. I remember on the campaign trail, I said something about John McCain, I believe it was. And I got a response, but okay, well, what would you like to see? And, and it was more personal. So they were the first, even though Trump tweets 24/7.
Mm-hmm. And
Okay.
he's changed it. I'm not going to say,
Right.
do I want to say something positive? I'm like, yeah, he's shifted.
Mm-hmm.
Now look at how all politicians are on Twitter now. And
Right.
that really was not as heavy of an engagement. So, each administration henceforth
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
will embrace technologies in a different way. But didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just like, yeah,
No,
he sure
go
changed
ahead.
that. But
Right, because when you think
but
about it, it all
mm-hmm,
started with George Bush.
mm-hmm.
George Bush. I mean, Twitter was a thing when George Bush was
Yes.
president. The two trending topics each day was, "I lost my job. I lost my house." Those were the
Mm-hmm.
top tweets under the Bush administration, and so naturally, and I think there still was even some push to, because while the Obamas mastered social media when they were running, we saw it kind of hit a wall when they got into office, because again,
Yes.
we have to have these walls, we have to have these barriers. The forefathers had no intention for the people to have as much power as they want, right? But then
Mm-hmm.
even and still again, look at how Trump changed it. It's like, I don't know if he doesn't even look at the feedback. He
No,
apparently
that's where I was going as you're saying this. I'm like, yep. You're
yeah.
anticipating where I want to go. Right? Is that
Mm-hmm.
I started blogging in 2007, right? So I started going to conferences and so forth, and Facebook was relatively new beyond the domain of college students, and then Twitter was getting to be a thing. All of that time, and I was approaching it from the point of view of business. But the big advice that was being given, and this was it for marketing in general, right? Is that marketing is our conversations really.
Mm-hmm.
There was a thing called the Clue Train Manifesto, that all marketing should be a conversation, that business should be in conversation with their all their stakeholders, so particularly with your customers, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so how, instead of one way, Seth Godin's talking about this, the two-way communication, right? Instead of just pushing out, like you say, if you have a press conference and you have a schedule, you're pushing it out, right? So
Right.
suddenly we had the opportunity to engage the other way. We, the viewer, the consumer, the audience,
Mm-hmm. The voter.
the voter, right, could
Mm-hmm.
talk back, right? And so, like you say, the Obamas handled that very well in the campaign. But when they got, all the chapters there where she talks about being in the bubble, when they got in the bubble, they had to lock that down, right? And in part because they could be tracked, right? You still can
Mm-hmm.
be. And so, how did they keep from letting this be being open, and particularly even the iPhone, you couldn't have an iPhone because of security issues and all this kind of thing.
Right.
And
Right.
so they really couldn't engage. But at Trump now, he's sort of, thumbed his nose, even
Mm-hmm.
at the security issues. We won't go into that. But it doesn't appear to me that he's having conversations. He's
It's
back
still
to
not a
that old
two-way
model.
conversation,
No,
right?
he's just pumping it out, pumping it
But
out, pumping it
but
out.
even though he's not taking the information in, you can still see he's responding to it, because some of the things that he responds to, you're like, okay, that's not even the priority right now. So
Mm-hmm.
the two-way conversations is still there. He's still receiving the information. He just doesn't, give credit to where he gets it from, or what he was. And you see what he's talking about, and then you go like, well, who is he responding to? What is he responding to?
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't know, and that's the whole thing with this. But we want to get to a couple topics
Yeah, I
here.
mean,
Just that's how we start out. Just like, this is what's going on around us and how we got here. thankfully through this book, we're able to go back and see how our first lady dealt with all of this. And it like I said, it's been a saving grace to me because there were some things I did not understand about the administration, things that, everybody, based on how you voted, there were things you wanted to become a priority and so forth. And looking at what our first lady and first ladies have to deal with now, I have a new level of respect. And I know
Mm-hmm.
people get sensitive when you say you now have a level of respect for
Mm-hmm.
something. First lady, first
Mm-hmm.
lady had to deal with that. Somebody else the other day, there was a young woman. There was a headline where a young woman said, "Oh, I now know what it means to," And so everybody always goes, well, "Now you know," but I don't want to say
Mm-hmm.
now I know, but now I have a level because the questions that I needed answers to, we couldn't get those during their time in the White House, and she fully addresses that in the book. The one thing that we are going to give you some sound bites from the book today is I wanted to know more about her circle. I wanted to know what she was drawing from, the confidence. Where is that coming
Mm-hmm.
from? How she was dealing with what people were saying because um, when we're talking about otherness, togetherness, and sameness, otherness, I didn't hear that word in that context until she started describing it in the book and how people would, even though she was trying to serve the country as the first lady, people kept bringing up her otherness. That she's tall, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that she has hips, that she's showing her arms, that she, is educated. That she, and, I mean, and all first ladies are, but you don't really get. This was the first time we really got to see. No, not the first time because we had Hillary. Yet, it's like, but even in that,
Yeah.
it was an otherness to her where it's like as much as she was the same as all of our first ladies. Let's start there. As much as she was the same, she's married to a man with such political aspirations that he
Mm-hmm.
became president of the United States. That's the sameness,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay. But yet the otherness kept coming through. But they're this, but they're that, but they're this, but they're that. And even that is the sameness because I think back when Reagan became president, they kept trying to say this was the Irish, this is an Irish guy, this is an Irish victory, it's an Irish this. He took a lot of slack because he didn't celebrate the Irish holidays the way, he didn't make
Mm-hmm.
the country realize, the Irish heritage as much as they wanted to, right? But
Yep.
nobody, we don't bring that out. And the same thing with all of them. So that sameness, okay, is still kept getting caught up on the otherness and how she dealt with that. That's what I those are the lessons from. If there's ever any lessons in becoming Michelle Obama, those are the lessons that I need because I have had to at times spend my life in places where I'm there because we're the same, but you keep pointing out my otherness. Last week we had somebody jump on,
Mm-hmm.
and my otherness like came right. I'm like, did you realize how far it took me back, right? I'm like, wow, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we're all out here taking technology to the best of its levels, he came right in and said, but your otherness is you got it
Double.
doubly bad. And I'm like, but I'm still in the same space as everybody else, you know? And you're not looking at the fact that I even though you say I have it doubly bad, we're all right here together. And we never throughout that whole conversation got to that point. Did we or did we not?
No, it's and that and
Exactly.
I think that you summed it up very well there when you said you're going into places where you expect to connect on the sameness. And
Mm-hmm.
instead, your otherness is pointed out to you. You're not
Mm-hmm.
pointing out your own otherness, right? And
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
I think there's an important lesson in that. I mean, I had to think about that in interchange all week, really, because there's a
Right.
lot in it. And I thought, well, how do you be respectful, right? Because you want to be respectful of people who have differences or whatever. But I'm like, yeah, but you don't have to be the one that says, hey, you're different. You got to listen. And it's like, let other people, they're through an other, but honor and dignify people. People will tell you
Mm-hmm.
if there's some difference that needs to be addressed, right?
Mm.
lead with the sameness, right? Lead with where we are in the same space, right? And so I
Right.
think this is so interesting about Michelle Obama to say she came in to the experience of being a political wife
Mm-hmm.
thinking how she was the same as other working women, working
Mm-hmm.
moms, two career families, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's thinking that she's going to go out and she's like, my dad, worked for the, worked at the, worked his whole life. He had an illness. My mom was a housewife, supported the family. She's looking and saying, surely people are going to connect with me because that's how I connect with others. She connected with other people, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
how I was we were a working class family and I worked really hard and I got a scholarship. And yet she got hammered, like I say, down, picked apart,
Mm-hmm.
down to like, is her arm showing, right?
Right.
Over difference instead of saying this massive area where she's reaching out to people and saying, look how we're the same. And I think that to me is what we were talking about last week too, is we come into a space thinking we're going to be, I think about this in business events, right? And I'm coming in and I'm thinking I'm going to be treated as a as a as an entrepreneur, as a person in business, and then I get treated like a little, hey little lady, pat pat pat, by men in a room.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, right?
Mm.
Boom, right? Now they say now I'm instantly separate, right? So I think that
Exactly.
that's it, and that what Michelle Obama tried to do with this book, right, is by sharing her unique story. There's a whole thing in storytelling that the personal is universal, right? Is that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you think something that happened to you is extremely personal, and it probably is, but usually it represents a universal experience of joy, of pain, of loss, of desire, right? And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so this is what she's done here, right? So that now we can go, oh my God, guess what? I'm same as Michelle. Look at how we're the same. That's, I think, you
That's
read
the
that book.
hope. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the hope that you want, is that we come through this through some sameness, but in that the otherness kept coming up everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Our first lady, one thing we've learned throughout from in this, the book is broken down into like three areas, where she was her in her youth, and then the two of them becoming together, and then of course becoming more, which is where we spend a lot of time in those later chapters, because that's when we became to know them, on the campaign trail, and then of course becoming the first president and first lady. So everybody loves that part of the book. But there is the process of who she became started very early on. And one thing that in a world of otherness, where she found her sameness was in her sister friends, in her girlfriends, in her circle. And it resonated starting at chapter 4. It went on, throughout her college days, and then throughout, marriage and starting a young family, and especially in the White House, because even though she was trying to be, the same, and I think she did very well trying to, address, and show a part of herself to try and resonate with everybody, because you have to, because what you hear every day, well, they're the president and first lady for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we found that she oftentimes had to go back within her group. I like the one quote, that I'm going to play, where she talked about her hips. Like, the woman is tall, is statuesque. I'm gonna use that word. She's statuesque, and she walks in the room, and yes, you're gonna notice her
Mm-hmm.
arms, her shoulders, and those hips. Okay, and I love that she had a circle that she could go into where everybody had those hips, so therefore it didn't stand out. I just love that camaraderie, and to know that she had that, because we didn't see a lot of that throughout the administration. You didn't see, or you didn't hear about, oh, well, the first lady is going, she's taking a trip, or she's taking a plane, a girlfriends, or the, friends are coming to stay at the White House or in proximity of the White House. And so we didn't hear a lot about that. We can imagine why, because people would have
Mm-hmm.
lost their minds to
Mm-hmm.
know that she needed to go and have her camaraderie with people that she had absolute sameness
Mm-hmm.
with. So let's go ahead and get started on playing a couple of these clips. The first one starts out is the one that starts out, I learned. So let me bring that up because I got on my headset so you guys can hear that. In fact, let me get the volume going on that. and then I'll get that played for you guys. And again, guys, you're catching this. If you're catching this live, you will catch it replay and syndicated across all platforms right after this. Hold on. Giving me emotional ballast when I needed it most. Friendships between women, as any woman will tell you, are built of 1,000 small kindnesses like these, swapped back and forth and over again. I love that the kindness, showing some kindness. I think we go through our days, and I don't think anybody can deny this. We search for kindness. We look for kindness. Kindness. I know when I encounter true kindness, it gives me pause. I have to like stop, like whoa, because we are always on. I know I'm always on guard, and in this political climate and things that are happening in our world today. And I know for me, I've been out of my circle of friends or cohorts or people that I have things in common with. I haven't been able to, to travel and to go to the groups and the networks, all of that stuff. So when I see it and I experience it, we have gotten to the world where that is something that's different. You've got to search for that. You've got to protect it, and protecting it. Can we just talk about that? Because she had to. Did you hear her say friends would hop planes and come and meet her on the campaign trail? She had to protect that because she was under fire.
And
So can you imagine if you saw somebody who also looked like her that was her best friend? Can you imagine if you knew the first lady had a best friend? Can you she had to protect that.
She really did. And so not only did she have to protect herself, right? She had to protect her friends, right?
Her friends, not in her daughters, and her daughters'
And
friends.
right. And her mom and this her whole circle, her support group. She needed a support group, but she had to help her and protect her, but she had to protect them because, like you say, even in this. So we're in chapter 22 for anybody who's following along. That was on page 361 if you have the book. There's a whole big section in here where she's talking about her friends and sort of her experience of friends and friendship during the presidency. But and like you said, we didn't read. This is not something that we really knew about.
Right, we're learning after the fact.
And in fact, there's a quote a little later. I don't know that we're going to get to it, but she talks about being rigorous about friendship, and that she had to go through hoops, right? And as she progressed through this, her ability to connect became more and more constrained and constricted, right? And so they keep telling her, "Nope, you got to bring it in. Nope." And she describes it as the bubble. Got to get the bubble, but now the bubble's got to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And who gets to be in the bubble? Because they have to be able to protect her, the kids,
right,
the president, and the people who enter the bubble, right? So I think this is a place where you and I resonate a lot of having been through circumstances, some related to caregiving, some related to other things, where we go through expansion and contraction in our own network, right?
Right.
And this is typical, right? In anything in life, you breathe, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, expand, contract. And so she has had to aggressively create this group and protect it through what really was a personal, as a global expansion, but a personal contraction. But she had to find the people, like you say, with these 1,000 small kindnesses, because in the paragraph prior to this, she talks about trying to teach the children how to spot folks who were thirsty, which cracks me up. And that they had. And think about little kids having to worry about hangers on and groupies and people who are just trying to worm their way.
That's where it starts. Yeah. See, and I think we forget about that, but that's really where this thing starts, because in the first, years of socialization, that's where all of this stuff is formulated that you literally carry on the rest of your life. If you can't negotiate those relationships, right, then you can't negotiate as when you become an adult. Because I'm sorry, anybody out there that doesn't know, you literally spend the rest of your life dealing with some of the very same things you dealt with as a child. And
Mm-hmm.
if there's anything you want to go back and fix, it usually we'll go back to that. So let's just kind of go through these so we make sure we get them in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The second one is where she talked about, listen, with all this stuff going on, she still had to do some things for me. Hold on. My friends tend to be accomplished, overcommitted people, many of them busy with family lives and heavy duty jobs. I understood it wasn't always easy for them to get away, but this was part of the point. We were all so used to sacrificing for our kids, our spouses, and our work. I had learned through my years of trying to find balance in my life that it was okay to flip those priorities and care only for ourselves once in a while. I was more than happy to wave this banner on behalf of my friends, to create the reason and the power of tradition for a whole bunch of women to turn to kids, spouses, and colleagues and say, sorry, folks, I'm doing this for me. I like that she talked about traditions there. That was one of the How to
Mm-hmm.
Get Out of Bed podcasts
Mm-hmm.
that we did this week was traditions, and the only thing that makes you break with traditions are the other things that you tolerate. And
Mm.
so, and that's just why I love this book. And I will always keep it around and keep playing it and keep going back and keep reading it because it just reinforces. And there was another part that I think it was, I think it was in her thing where, and I think you said something to it too, where things could be going on, and you think it's just you,
Mm-hmm.
you think it's just happening to you, but yet you realize it's like, wait a minute, oh, this is really just a thing that happens in life. Everybody is dealing with this, no matter where they are, whether you're in the White House, you're in your own house, or wherever you are on the spectrum. These things happen. And I think you need your friends, you need your circle, you need to be able, because the thing that upsets me about social media is we see these things on our timeline. We see people going through this and that and the other thing. And especially, and I'm going to say especially as I hate to, but I'm going to bring it to the sameness. Women, things that are happening to women, and at a point where we as women can't seem to relate to that. Some women are dealing with this, some women are dealing with that.
Mm-hmm.
When we can't relate beyond who we are and offer up those kindness gestures, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that's when society is becomes crippled. You know what I mean? To me,
Yes.
yeah. Okay, and this year
Yes.
we're gonna do one more, and then we'll finish
Yeah.
up.
Mm-hmm.
Made me whole. Her friends
Yeah.
made her whole. That's a good one. Hold on.
Yeah.
My friends made me whole, as they always have and always will. They gave me a lift anytime I felt down or frustrated or had less access to Barack. They grounded me when I felt the pressures of being judged, having everything from my choice of nail polish color to the size of my hips dissected and discussed publicly. And they helped me ride out the big, unsettling waves that sometimes hit without notice. Wow. Now I that kind of took me back when she talked about when she had less access to her husband,
Mm-hmm.
who is the president, who she shares a residence with, but he's got to go on a foreign trip, or he's got to be in the war room, or he's got to be. There was a part I think I was just listening. Remember she talked about being first lady and president, that there are these notebooks that come to them each night, right?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of summarize their day and the tasks they have before them, and all the planning that goes on. I know we as the American people, you turn on, you like, the president is here, the first lady is there, and we think it all just happens that day, but we don't think about all the planning and all the people. Like she talks about how she had to move around and trying to go places and not cause a stir
Mm-hmm.
just because she wants to do just a simple thing and so forth. But to know, that, well, one, we just didn't, so much we did not know. So when you are reading this book, it's almost like you want to know about her because everybody loved her as a first lady, but you also get these glimpses to the other side of the White House, because a lot of the books that are out there, they're based on the presidential experience. The experience
Mm-hmm.
of the president, the experience of running the White House, the experience of politics and governing. But yet this one gave us a glimpse in, it's like, wait, she's talking about this, but wait, she just mentioned that, and that ties to this, and that ties to that. So you really get kind of a 360, you know, and it makes you want to know about other things. So it makes you want anticipate the next book. It makes you anticipate
Mm-hmm.
other books and things like that. I think, you know, but the one thing I think, and I don't know that we truly know what their legacy is going to be, because you know their presidential library and all of those things that come after you've been president has yet to be, you know, it's not done yet, it's not open yet, so we don't really know, it's not fermented yet what their legacy. Of course they had to decide what it was going to be, but I'd like for it to be this thing of sameness. I'm so glad we discovered that part of the context of this book,
Mm-hmm.
because that was for me some of the most eye-opening, and if anything has caused a true change in me
Mm-hmm.
personally, it is that I'm able to look at things, because you know I'm kind of staunch and strict on what I believe and
Mm-hmm.
the narratives that I put out each and, because there was a story that was shared of the tremendous, right? But when people hear that, they think, well, we've had so many crises, we've had so many epidemics, and yet we see that this one, the approach to it, it is not, hasn't been called, I don't know, has it been called a war yet?
Yolanda, the
Are
very
we in
first
a
part,
war on opioids yet?
yeah, the very first part of your story there
Did we
got
lose
cut off.
Angela?
Yeah, there. Can you hear me? There
I
was a
think
little.
she might have muted. So we have this crisis, and yet we have what people, somebody posted where a mother had lost two sons in a span of a 24 hour. I may have to, Angela, I think I lost you or you had to mute. Let me know if we need to drop and
Yeah,
bring you back up. Let me see.
can
Hold
you
on.
hear me,
Okay.
Yolanda?
So my question is, when I saw that, and I saw that I'm gonna that, yes, she did. We did lose her. She'll come back. When I saw a friend post it, and the friend that posted it is probably one of the most empathetic young women out there. She's also a mama as well. But when I saw that she posted and talking about the opioid crisis, um, she couldn't share a moment of empathy with the mother who had the loss, simply because of the number of mothers that we have talked about over the years who have experienced a loss of sons due to a number of other issues and crises. That, Angela, if you can hear me, you might want to go out and come back in so we can bring you back up so that we can wrap this up. I hate to end it and you can't get back on. And I hope her phone didn't die. So when I saw that, that brought me back to this book. It brought me back to Michelle Obama's words. It brought me back to that otherness. Here in a moment where we should have had absolute saneness. Here in a moment, and I know we should have absolute saneness. And I don't know if it's because some of us, we don't want to be the one all the time extending the olive branch or extending the empathy, you know, and especially as Black women, we're oftentimes the ones extending the empathy to everybody. It's, I don't know if that's a natural thing. I don't know if that's just something we're born to do, but it just seems to be something that we do. Let me see. Add Angela. Let's see. I'm gonna try. I think it's there. It's trying to add her back. It's counting down, so I think she may be back with us. Let's see. Okay, say
Yay.
so. There we
Okay,
go.
there we go.
Okay,
Yeah.
I saw it. It didn't give me a notification. I just saw the one there, and I was like, oh, maybe that's it. All
Yeah,
right, there we go.
we were having a little bit of a technical difficulty there, Yolanda. The very first part of your story broke up. I know the story, so just to catch people up, you're talking about a story that was on about the opioid crisis.
Right.
Right, that was in the news today. So I just, I think it was clear there, but it broke up. I was dropping out when that was breaking up. So continue though about this
Oh,
burden
okay.
on Black women to to
Well,
be
well, the
to
thing
be
about it
it.
was, I was saying I saw a young woman who's also a mother share the story, and so when I saw a woman lost two sons, I'm like, whoa. But then I looked at her description, her how she commented, the commentary she added to the article was, but oh, now we're concerned people because people are making the contrast between
Ah,
the crack era, that era of people losing the community, and then and what's going on now with the opioids. So there's some divisiveness, we're divided, and here this young woman, I know her to be one of the most empathetic people out there. And I'm like, wow, if she can't relate to this, we're
mm-hmm,
in trouble, right? That was my
mm-hmm.
thought process. If we can't relate to, if we can't relate in this sense of loss, that we have to say, like it's almost if you said to me, you have a bandage, and I'm going, oh, what happened there? And it's a burn or whatever, right? And I'm like, you expect me to be concerned, but then I'm giving a thought. Well, I was wearing one last week and got nothing, right?
Right.
So that's where we are. And I was asking if in the opioid crisis, is it called a war on opioids or anything like that now?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you get to a point in a society where we cannot feel the loss of a mom who lost two sons, I think it said in the span of 24 hours,
Mm-hmm.
to this opioid crisis, um, and I'll probably end up getting some pushback. Why are you being empathetic to this story when we had? Because let me tell you, nobody knows, and I'm not gonna say nobody knows, but I was around. I was blogging in the '90s, and I had to deal with a lot of these stories and communities just losing people to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but in this comparison, and I don't know what the entity is that is bringing the otherness really to the table into this conversation. That's where I'm trying to find out who's
Well,
really bringing this otherness forward, because it's still it's still a terrible loss.
well, and let's just on a high level, right? On the
Mm-hmm.
30,000 foot level, who wins from us staying divided, right? And this would be
Exactly.
politicians, right? We've got a
Ooh.
political climate that is based on division, right?
Right.
This is like red state, blue state, but it's it's we keep pulling into those separations. And I'm not saying that there's not reasons to be divided and that we have divisive opinions, and there's things that I'm with you. I got staunch opinions that I probably won't budge on, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, that's being fed, right? We're feeding that because
Right.
this is how you get money, and how politicians get power and they get money, right?
Mm.
All of our platforms, right, are click
Mm-hmm.
driven, click views. This is again to say something that is going to get people riled up is going to get them to share it, right? And to
Right.
share it is money. Money, people making money, right? The media makes money when you click, when you turn it on, when you watch a thing, right? And all of these are businesses and they're corporations that are driven by a demand for more money, more money, more money. And so this is where all the ethics then start to go out the window. We didn't used to be this way, especially you and I can remember journalism in the time of Walter Cronkite, maybe where
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the journalists sort of set above everybody else, and we're supposed to, not that they necessarily were, right? But this idea of partisan journalism was less of a thing. But now all the media companies are owned by giant conglomerates, and they
Mm-hmm.
have to earn money for that conglomerate. So ABC is part of Disney. ABC News got to make money like Disney make money, right?
Right. And they all
So,
make their money manipulating the emotions. So it's benefiting them
mm-hmm.
for us to have beef over, oh, you're experiencing something that we've already experienced and we didn't come together then, so we're not gonna come together now. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Mm.
understanding that there's legitimate wrong and
Ooh.
unfairness and injustice that's been done in this country historically, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that
Mm-hmm.
has not been recognized. Okay, base that's we're coming. We're this is not denying that sort of systemic injustice, right? And so you go to the Lynch Museum. I can never remember the full title of it. The Lynching Museum.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's an injustice, right? And we
Right.
have
And
to
they don't
address
even they
that.
don't even want to call it the lynching
No,
memorial,
and
which is but it's the
justice and
memorial
reconciliation.
memorial for justice and human something.
Is it reconciliation? I think is the title, and something, right? But justice, right? And so it's like yeah, there, and I think it's interesting to say this is to say we've got to look at places where there's been injustice, and we're going
Mm-hmm.
to address justice. And so this is, I think that's incredibly correct to say, okay, in the past when this was happening to certain groups and there was injustice and nobody paid attention, and now it's happening over here. It's to recognize that. But then if we start to strip away the like you say, the empathy that is in there and the human emotion of it, to say, but can't I for a moment say, here's a mother who lost two children, right?
Right, right.
And maybe, like you say, you're the mother who lost two children and nobody gave you any sympathy that or any empathy, right? That doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that that kindness needs to be stripped away. Kindness and justice can coexist. And I
And
feel
then,
like,
and how long are we going to go where we can't point out the fact that, well, everybody should have just been kind? And it's the National Memorial for Peace and Justice. That's
thank you,
what it's
peace
called.
and justice. Somehow I had reconciliation
Right.
there.
And it's the National Memorial for Peace and Justice. But the minute you walk past that sign, then you get the real true breakdown where they tell you why they're even calling it that. And that's probably where
Mm-hmm.
you're getting the reconciliation, because it's in the context of, right when you walk in, as you walk in there, these pillars that kind
Mm-hmm.
of explain the whole movement of the whole memorial and so forth. But yeah, I couldn't get that either. The National Memorial for Peace and
Yeah,
Justice,
yeah.
because
And
we don't
I,
want to say lynching.
that's right, because it's really not about. I mean, it's part of the experience, but it's really about a greater story, right? And it's not
Mm-hmm.
about
Mm-hmm.
looking. It's not about looking back and saying, "Oh, isn't it bad that that happened?" Right? It's about seeing how this is part of a continuing
Continuing.
process,
Yes.
and that
Yes.
how do we make it right now in our version of how we're living it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is, and so yes, understanding there's a lot of hurt and injustice, and
Mm-hmm.
I completely understand if somebody sees something and they strike out from a place of hurt, that's fine. But then we got to elevate that and to say, okay, like you say, we're
we can elevate it to the point.
I'm like literally I'm stuck on the words, because I'm like, there's kindness, but there does, again, reconciliation. There has to be restorative justice, right?
Yes.
There has to be
Yes.
something that
And we
addresses
didn't get
what was
that.
wrong, and it's like, and this is where the hurt comes from, right? As you didn't, and it's like, we large swaths of this country have not had that. Where contrition and
Mm-hmm.
reparation. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's a loaded word, but it's like if somebody commits a crime, right? Let's say,
Mm-hmm.
like it's a civil crime, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to use the college admission scandal, right? And let's say money, people, well, it's actually not a good example, but let's say someone commits a civil crime, embezzlement, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
steal money. They may go to jail for that, but usually they have to make restitution to the victim. They're supposed to pay back the money, as
Right.
much of it as they can. So here and then they do there's a punishment, and then they serve their time and they're done, right? So, or supposedly. So where is that? We don't have, this is what people instinctively realize is missing, right?
But
Is
you know
that,
what's
is
coming
that
out of that?
okay? Where's the restitution for the damage? Go ahead.
Right. But the thing that's coming out of that, instead of even, let's use the cheating scandal, and then I also want to go back to the fact of how our presidency changed hands, because while we were so close to that, then we had to change hands and everything went totally a different direction. What I'm seeing, instead of dealing with the cheating situation, with where it is, there are people out there who will not celebrate their honors simply because I was watching a late night talk show, and the gentleman was on there, and they said, "Hey, listen, your daughter is graduating." He's like, "Yeah, I almost don't want to say it, right?"
Mm,
It's like, I mean, think about it. We're in the height of graduation right now. Next week, when we go see Michelle
mm-hmm.
Obama, you better believe they're going to be 20 different They're going to usher us in and usher us out, and there's going to be probably a graduation before and a graduation after.
Exactly.
The reaction to the cheating scandal is not that we persecute or prosecute those who did the wrong. Those who did it right are going quiet. Those
Mm-hmm.
who honorably got into these institutions and made their way through their institutions, whether they had to struggle or whether everything was laid out before them, they are the ones that are going quiet on this. We have people. There are people out there who are not going to post about their graduation
Mm.
because they don't want to. They don't want to get any kind of pushback as if they didn't earn it. So
Mm-hmm.
here we have somebody who just a couple of people. What it was like 40 of them or so
Mm-hmm.
caught up in this
Mm-hmm.
thing. Because we know even though this one was about 40, it represents, as we always say, that small sampling does represent a larger body, but the good is about to suffer with the bad because now you have people who don't want to go out and say, hey, listen, I'm graduating, or I'm leaving high school, getting ready to go to college, and I've got X amount of dollars in scholarships. Now all of that is getting ready to go quiet. It's getting ready to go mute. Too
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes, the good has to mute itself because of how loud the bad is, and
That's a very good point.
that's really sad. I mean, this young man that was on television, one, he was an actor, and the interviewer was asking him, knowing his daughter's like, hey, your daughter's graduating this year, and he was like, I don't want to say,
Mm-hmm.
he's like, can we even talk about that? How do we get to a point where we can't even celebrate and talk about that? That's crazy, and that's where we are, and that's when we look back on becoming Michelle Obama and her book and other books of other first ladies and so forth, and the transition of our governing bodies. We've got to figure out the legacy out of it's got to stand that the good can do better than the bad.
Mm-hmm. And I totally, I think that's such a good point. And to say, don't mute your successes, right? And there's been this sort of blowback on kids of color who get into multiple colleges and they collect all these, they have $1 million of scholarships and they're filming them, their joy. And, there's been this thing, well,
And the first
what?
thing people go, why would you apply to that many schools? Well, there's
Mm-hmm.
an app for that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, and
because we live in public now, people can find you. We should be excited about it.
And
Go ahead.
why shouldn't people be able to shop for their college education and see where they can get, are you going to get a good offer? I mean, to me, it's like, good, do it. Right. And,
Right.
but in like, can we celebrate that instead of, again, being instantly critical and saying, well, why is this? And why is this? And why is this? Right. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that to your point is that, what I love is that kids keep sharing that, right? They keep sharing their success. And, and but I saw a girl who and she had one of these where she had been accepted to a lot of schools and had um, a lot of scholarships, and people had been posting ugly things on her Twitter
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, and it's like, let's not do that, right?
But
But to
it's
say,
because, like you said, it's because of the clicks. It's because of
mm-hmm,
things that manipulate emotions.
mm-hmm,
That something like that, it bodes well for break it down. It bodes well for the social media platform. So because if you think about it, why are they exposing that story? Is because it's getting clicks. It's because it's getting likes. It's
absolutely,
because they're able to serve more advertising. Because that person is probably like, how are all these people seeing my post, and
mm-hmm,
then you
right.
go, I had a post the other day, had 1,099 shares. 1,099 shares.
Wow,
Okay, there are only a couple of hundred people on the page.
right,
And none of the other posts, nothing before that, nothing behind that, received any kind of residual from this audience, right? I couldn't find any rhyme or any reason, with the except of the fact of when the post started doing well, it served the platform better than it served
yeah,
me
mm-hmm,
to expose it to more and more people.
mm-hmm,
So yeah, here was something that went viral, and yes, I have some amazing numbers on it. When you think 1,000 shares, 100,000 people saw this, and I think it was one of my recipes or something of that matter, right? But there was no rhyme or reason. It manipulated something in people, whether they wanted to say, and luckily it was all positive feedback, but it was nothing that I can now put in my social media, the scheme of things, right? And say, oh, unless I wanted to do more of this or more of that, you know. But it's just something that it manipulated something, and the platform took full advantage of it and exposed it to more people. They got a chance to make more money off of it.
Well, and this really to me ties back around to my favorite takeaway from the book, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
is Michelle Obama was a child, but I'm like, she could have been my best, I'm like, we could have been best friends, right? I'm like, talk about sameness. Who really just wanted to do good. She wanted to be good. She wanted to do well. She wanted people to like her. She wanted to succeed, right? And she spent most of her life up until they entered politics getting that kind of feedback. You're a good student. You're a good mom. You're a good wife. You're good at your job. Now we're going to hire you for another job, right? You're good at
Mm-hmm.
this job. She was used to that, right? And then she got into an arena where nothing she did was
Nothing.
right, right? There was, of course, there was always people that were going to say good job. And she talks about, her gospel chorus, her cheerleaders, she uses this her gospel choir, right? I thought it was our hallelujah choir. But she had people that were telling her, you're doing good, right? And I'm sure that told her she wasn't. But now she's in this position that, and then she tries this. So nothing she says or does or wears, right? Or how she holds her, how she bumps her fist, or how she looks at her eyes, or her garden.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. There's always going to be somebody who is attacking her, right? And that she learned as a person who's basically like a people pleaser, really. She learned to build up a hard enough skin to say, I know myself. I
Mm.
know my intention, and I know I'm doing the best I can. And if I make a mistake, I'll address it. But otherwise, I've got to stand in me, right? I've got to stand in my own voice, in my own power, and the way I have decided to do this shit, right? And it's like, this is how she was going to take care of her kids. This is how she's going to go be in the White House. This is how she was going to go to Target, right? She's going to sneak. I always appreciate going to Target, right? She's going to sneak off to, but she's like, she had to learn to say, it doesn't matter what I do. There's going to be people who attack me in the ugliest,
Mm-hmm.
worst ways. And yes, it hurts, and I'm going to have to heal those wounds. But it did not sway her from saying, here's my core value system, and I'm just going to do what I got to do to be as excellent. See, she's excellent as I can in this circumstance, and
Mm.
recognize that it's about that, right? And I think that's the thing for me, because I've always wanted to make sure everybody was happy, and I wanted to do the right
Mm-hmm.
thing. And when you're a public speaker, when you're in groups, even doing this kind of stuff, you're constantly thinking, all right, how do I express what I'm trying to say? And I want to get the meaning across, and I want to make sure people understand, and I don't want to offend. Guess what? Somebody's going to hear what you said. Maybe you'll say something offensive. Maybe I'll say something offensive. But people may misunderstand me. That doesn't mean that I should be quiet, right? That doesn't mean that you
Oh,
should be quiet,
yes.
right? That means that you should be open to listen. You
Mm-hmm.
open to listen, and then there is a point where you will have to decide, did I do something that needs to be addressed, right? Maybe I shouldn't have applied to 50 colleges, right? Or is it that, no, it is my right and privilege to apply to 50 colleges and get into 50 colleges and share that success. And anybody who
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like it can go pound sand, right? And let me not get too, I've already cursed once, right? It's like, it's to say, and that's okay for me. And it's a shame that we have to build up thicker skin. And
Right.
but part of your thing, if we live in public, we're everything, we are, if we're going
Mm-hmm.
to take it, there's so many benefits from this,
Mm-hmm.
that to take advantage of it, we're just going to have to learn. And if anything, there is a blessing in that, and that it teaches us to really get grounded in ourselves, and to not be in this, like, there's a point where you're just going to have to say, this is me, I'm doing the best I can. And,
Exactly, exactly. And our first lady left us so many lessons because she had to do it in the extreme public. And I was looking as you were talking, looking down the list of all the different clips, and I have one here that's just like 9 seconds. I want to play it, but I don't want to play it if it doesn't fit. But let's just see.
yeah.
Let me see. I think there is. What did I do with it? Let me see. Be myself. I think it's called Be Myself.
Mm-hmm.
As we planned my public appearances, Stephanie counseled me to play to my strengths,
Mm-hmm.
and to remember the things I most enjoy talking about, which was my love for my husband and kids, my connection with working mothers,
and my proud Chicago roots. She recognized that I like to joke around and told me not to hold back with my humor. It was okay, in other words, to be myself.
Mm.
That's what this thing is, and we've got to figure out how to be ourselves. We've got to figure out how to find some empathy, some kindness. My biggest takeaway from the book is watching our first lady, even though had no clue that her life was on this trajectory, but
Yes.
yet and still, she always had a goal in mind. She always had things that she was working towards, and nothing. I don't think she did anything haphazardly. Like, you know how people say, "Oh, I just happened to be this, or I
Mm-hmm.
happened to be that." I don't think we discovered any of that in this
Mm-mm.
book. She was meticulous all throughout life, from the spelling bee on until, and just she was just, I think she was meticulous, and I'm so glad that the book did come out, because like I said, after the administration, having to depend on, in our day, because there's gonna be a generation that will not have to depend on the news cycle to get information about people, places, and things. But because of this news cycle the way it was then, there was so much to know that she had her circle of friends, the people that she can call to, people that she can truly go into the sameness with, her
Mm-hmm.
togetherness, that was her togetherness. That's some of my big takeaways, and probably going to propel me to getting back into some circles, because I
Mm-hmm.
think we do isolate ourselves, even though we've got social media and we're public and this, that, and the other. I think we still isolate ourselves. I know I do. I isolate myself
Mm-hmm.
too much. So that's gonna be my takeaway. I can't wait to see what their true legacy really
Mm-hmm.
becomes. Once the what is the Obama Library, is that what they're doing? A digital
Yes.
library? Yeah, once that is up. And after they finish their respite, I mean, I think right now she's on this book tour, but for the most part, she's just kind of enjoying herself, the afterlife of living in the White House, right?
Mm-hmm. And boy, do they deserve it, and does she deserve it?
Exactly. So, what would be your number one takeaway, Miss Angela?
I think that just sort of what I said there, that the key to becoming
Mm.
is to really, as you said, you have got to know yourself. You have to understand that you will change, that life will change, but you will change, and to have some sort of process of checking in and making sure that you're in alignment with that. And what is that
Mm.
process? As you said, it's going to be surrounding yourself with really great people, making good connections, building relationships, nurturing relationships, understanding that there will be times of expansion and contraction, but
Mm-hmm.
that when you have that when you're getting off course, that it's about getting grounded in yourself. And so this to me is, looking at a person who we think it looks like she looked like she didn't have a care in the world, right? And to say, here is somebody who has experienced stress and pressure and the spotlight at a level, and she was able to navigate it in a way that I feel like she can look back and say that she's successful, right?
There
That she
you
feels
go.
successful. And so that, and I go back to this thing, success is a feeling, right? And that when you're checking into how that feeling, and then what needs to happen with a plan, right? Then whatever you're becoming you're going to feel successful about it. So that's my
Mm.
takeaway.
All right. So, one, I've always wanted to podcast with Angela, so I'm so glad this is it, and
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait. Next week we're gonna gather. So
Okay.
you guys will get a chance to see us live. We'll be at the arena. So at this point, she and I are going to start planning what that looks like, what it's going to sound like, and pulling all these pieces together. And we're actually going to be there, and we'll bring you some of. Again, like I said, we don't know what's going to be available to us in that moment, or how we're going to act in that moment. The last event we did like this, that we ran into each other, was at the Oprah event.
Mm-hmm.
So, but this has been absolutely awesome and great. So, thank you, Angela, for all that you've done. Bringing helping to bring the topic and so forth, and getting this out there. And guys, listen, when I hit the stop button again, we're gonna replay it immediately on some other platforms, and also it's gonna land on your favorite podcast. So podcast platform. So if you hear it, wherever you're hearing it, if you did not hear it live or come in and engage with us live, definitely check us out on Twitter. She is at Angela Stalkup. Angela spelled the right way. And then STALCUP. And I'm at Dryer Buzz on all platforms as well. Angela, last time you had a speaking engagement over at the university, what do you
Yes.
have coming up next besides going to see Michelle Obama?
Yes, so we're going to be collecting through our hashtag launch chat. Going to be collecting some stories from women business owners and just professional women on their sort of experience of leadership and success. So going to start looking for our launch chat hashtag where we're going to explore this idea, sort of an extension of becoming. But what is success for you? What is leadership for you? And we're going to be just doing it in little snippets. So it'll be little nice little bite-sized snacks, about maybe 10 minutes
Awesome.
of information. So we'll be looking for that. And then we'll see what the future holds. So
I know.
Anyway,
Good stuff.
So this has been great.
Good stuff. And for me, I will be back in the kitchen. My daughter wants me to do some chicken parmesan. So we're figuring out a couple of recipes for that. And that's it. I'm getting ready to take this little bit of a respite and a break, and get ready for next week. I'm also testing out some more technologies, something that we can use on site when we're there. So I'll be experimenting with that. So you guys will see me going live in different places as I get ready to bring you the best of us come Saturday. So that's going to be awesome and amazing. And again, thank you, Angela, for inviting Dryer Bus to come along. All right, guys, that's it. Say goodbye. All right,
Bye.
Angela, catch you next time.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.